So welcome back to the show. I called it yesterday or 2 days ago when I was on live doing the AMFest video about Nicki Minaj. I said that she was gonna, start a firestorm with her fans because a lot of her fan base is black if they're in the United States. And if you're under 30, to be black is to be gay, or to be trans is to be black, and whatever they put on their signs at their rallies. But the thing I've been noticing a lot is that after she spoke about boys needing to be boys, the number one insult being hurled against her is all of a sudden about her husband, Kenneth Perry. Let's take a listen.
My brother is in prison. I know what he did was wrong, but I don't feel like he deserves to be in there. And because I love him so much, the father of my child, he's done some unthinkable things, but he got the same track record as my brother. So I need to do what I got to do to get them into a better place. You better figure it out.
Now, she's obviously a lesbian, but she's not the only one. There's a lot of people that have been talking about Kenneth Perry, calling him a rapist or whatever, like he's a predator. So I said, let's go ahead and look into the case and see what we can find about this topic, see if we can bring up anything. So they're telling you that he's a predator. They said they tell you the age of the girl. They never tell you the age of him. So let's go ahead and see if we can find, see if we can look it up on Nicki Minaj's husband. We'll type that in. Let's go.
Breaking news. Recent new mugshots of Nicki Minaj's husband, Kenneth Petty, has surfaced on the internet and other social media pages. And since he is a convicted, it is mandatory that he takes a new mugshot every 3 months so it can be posted on the sex offender's website and also sent to his neighbors in the community that him and Nicki Minaj resides in. And I believe most people don't know how he ended up becoming a sex offender, so let's get into that. According to reports in 1994, Kenneth and his victim, a woman named Jennifer Huff, were both 16 years old at the time.
Now look at that picture. You're going to need it later.
When the incident took place. And reports say on this day in September of 1994, Jennifer was walking to school when Kenneth walked up behind her and pressed an object to her back and demanded her to keep on walking. Reports say after Kenneth walked up on her and pressed an object to her back, he allegedly forced her to walk to his residence, where he forced her upstairs and then proceeded to have his way with her at knife point. And it is...
Okay, so that's what they're alleging is against Kenneth Perry. So at the time, she was 16. He was 16. Well, he had just turned 16, so they knew each other when he was 15. She was 16. This is him in his interrogation.
Is this the knife that was in your room?
Yes.
Okay. And on your dresser?
Yeah. It shouldn't have been on my dresser.
Can you get that?
Hold it, hold it.
And do you wear contacts? No. Does your aunt?
Yes.
Do you recognize this photo? Huh? Where do you recognize that from?
What I recognize
Yeah.
from my aunt.
Okay. In your bedroom?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you and Jennifer have been friends for years, why would she say something like that?
No idea.
You have no idea?
Now Jennifer, his friend, the girl who accused him of raping her, well, she didn't actually make the accusation. Her adopted mother, who didn't like her hanging out with him, made the allegation against him. She actually stood up at trial and said that the allegations were fake and that he didn't do it because he didn't. But the problem is this: you're 16 years old and they threaten to give you life in prison. Now, a lot of people, when it comes to certain people, they want to pretend like they don't know how this goes in the system here, but men are railroaded, especially young men without proper legal representation. You know, you'll have a bad judge and you'll have a bad lawyer. The judge and the lawyer play golf together and they'll just send people up the river. You know, it's actually a business sending kids to these camps. The judges and DAs, they make a kickback off of it. So let's go down and see if we can find a video of the girl talking about Kenneth.
Is when you lie under oath, and regardless if I made a statement or I didn't make a statement, that is the reason why I stood up in court and judge asked, like, yo, does anybody have anything to say before he is sentenced? I stood up and I said, Your Honor, I'm the person who pressed the charges. I would like to drop the charges. I made a huge mistake.
Wow.
This was like, I'm in court in front of his family, in front of friends, in front of everybody, like whatever. And they was like, take it to the DA, and nobody wanted to hear shit.
Nobody wanted to hear shit. You know, it's crazy. And it's publicly known that she recanted her story and she said, actually, it's not true. She's not the only woman that does this. Women often lie because they don't want to be seen as hoes. They don't want people to make fun of them. It happens to a lot of men. It happened to me before. I remember in 6th grade, me and my friend Kevin, there were these two like little nerdy girls at school that had a crush on us. And one day, because they lived around the corner from me, they pulled up to my house. And me and my friend were standing in front of my garage. And the girls that came up to us, and then they were like, 1, 2, 3. And we were like, what are you guys doing? And they stepped forward. They both like kissed me and Kevin. We were like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And we laughed it off. We go to school on Monday, and the girls were telling everyone in school that we're their boyfriends. So people come and ask us, like, are you guys their boyfriends now? We were like laughing, like, hell no, we're not their boyfriends. What are you talking about? These girls were so embarrassed and they were so embarrassed they didn't know what to do. They literally said we tried to like rape them and attack them. And that's how they ended up kissing us. Luckily for me, I had a stepdad who I couldn't stand. And my stepdad, the window was open at my house, and or it was like he was like right on the other side of the door, and he could hear everything because he wanted to see what I could do. So I'm like in 6th grade. You don't know what a little boy is made of until they get older, but you want to see. For all they know, you're gay. So he's listening, and he heard, like I said, I've seen so many people be falsely accused because women don't want to be embarrassed or because there's a financial incentive. So you see the woman who actually was the center of the case saying, look, I made a mistake. Now we can go to, let's bring up my good old friend, ChatGB Tizzle. Let's say here. Tell us about Kenneth Perry. Is it Perry case? What's the name? Kenneth Perry Petty case. Let's see what comes up. Because again, a lot of people end up in a lot of situations and nobody wants to actually say, okay, let's consider it. Because it happens to young boys and young men every single day. They're railroaded. Okay, here we go. Now, remember, people are literally using this against Nicki Minaj. His charge wasn't rape. They said he attempted to rape somebody. So that means there was no DNA or anything, just whatever. But look at what ChatGPT tells us right here. The case was originally in 1995. Yeah, he's a little older. Charge, attempted rape in the first degree. The outcome, Petty pleaded guilty to attempted rape in 1995. The reason that they said he pled guilty is because, well, they put about 10 other charges on top of it and was trying to give him life. So what they do is they overcharge you just so that you'll take a bullshit plea deal so that you'll eventually see the time of day, because if you try to fight it in trial, you're cooked. They know you don't have the lawyer. They know you don't have money. They know you can't defend yourself. The outcome was he pled guilty to attempted rape in 1995, and he served 4 years in prison, basically. Context often cited online. The accuser later provided statements over the years claiming the encounter was consensual and that she did not want the situation to pursue further. She came back later and she tried to tell people, even on the day of trial, that everything they ever did, all the different times, was consensual. Remember, she was older than him. So when they're trying to say, oh, he's a predator, this and this, he's not. He was a kid. You know, people say, oh, yeah, that doesn't happen. But I mean, every time I look up, you guys are crying about Emmett Till still, saying that he was innocent. He didn't do that, right? Or how about, let's see here. Who else you guys talk about? You guys forgot about Brian
Now
Banks.
I'm 17.
You guys forgot about Brian Banks? Remember him?
So now I'm 17, and instead of facing minor camp time or juvenile hall time, I was now facing 41 years to life in prison. They tacked on a kidnapping charge, which carries life in the state of California. And what was happening behind the scenes, what I would later find out, which the accuser admitted to on video, was that every time she would hear my side of the story, she would add more to her story because she didn't want to look like a liar, because it was getting so deep on her end that she had to keep pushing the story. So while I was sitting.
And that's how it goes, because for one thing, it's only your word versus her word. So they can make up anything. They can say you had a friend who was an alien that shot a laser in your ass too. They can just say whatever they want and there's nobody to counter it. You can say, well, actually, no. The crazy thing about women in these situations, they can always change their stories. They can go up or down. They can go left or right. They can change their story 100 times. And if they cry, they're going to be deemed credible, regardless of the facts. No one cares about the facts. So this is common.
Jail. I was in jail for 1 count of rape. Next thing you know, it was 2 counts of rape. Next thing you know, it was 3 counts of rape. Next thing you know, it was 3 counts of and sodomy. Next thing you know, it was 3 counts of sodomy and kidnapping. Now I'm facing 41 years to life.
Now, when you look at what happened with Kenneth, all of his charges were starting to stack up just like that. So, of course, if they come in there and they make a plea deal with you, like, look, you're probably going to get convicted, you're going to do 40 to life, or you can take this plea deal, plead guilty, we're going to give you 5 years. When you're a teenager, 15, 16, 17 years old, and everyone's saying your life's going to be over, take the deal, you don't really have a choice. And again, it's always the parents behind the accusers that are pushing them to do this because, well, the parents are going to be able to sue the school. They're going to sue the gym. They're going to sue this place and that place. Even Brian Banks' accuser, she said the reason that she didn't want to tell the truth is because her mom had already got so much money and they didn't want to give the money back. So, and then Brian Banks, he ends up getting her on tape confessing about this later. Once he got out of prison 5 years later and he lost his chance to go, well, he ended up playing in the NFL, but he had lost his initial scholarship. He ended up getting her on tape, admitting to lying about the whole situation for the money. And he ended up suing her and he won, of course, but she didn't go to jail or anything. So it's not just Kenneth Perry. It's a lot of men. The problem is this, though. Courts rely on contemporaneous evidence and plea deals. A guilty plea remains legally binding regardless of later statements, meaning even if the person comes back later and says, you know what, that's not true, I made that up, and he pled guilty for nothing, the courts don't care. They're not going to re-examine it. They're not going to reopen it. They're going to say, nope, he shouldn't have pled guilty. So because he said he was guilty to get out of going to jail for life, the guilty plea is going to stay on his record, even if he's innocent, even when they're innocent. So now he has to be on the sex offenders list as if he's a man that was hunting down kids and some kind of predator or some kind of pervert. But really, Kenneth Petty was a victim. Like many other from New York or black and, little young dudes, a lot of them were victims to the system. They literally will railroad these kids and their families do not have the resources to defend them. They don't even know what's going on. If somebody makes an accusation about you and it's your word versus her word, there's really no way. Think about it. She doesn't have any proof that you did anything to her. So how can you prove that you didn't do anything? There's no proof that you did. So how do you counter when there's nothing there? I can't, it's just my word. And then this is the 90s. There were no video cameras. There were no cell phones. There's no text messages. There's nothing. So really it was the Wild West and anything can happen. So So the crazy thing is, this dude was a victim. He wasn't a predator. He was a victim himself. He was a kid himself. He was 16. So they make it seem like he was a statutory rapist. He was out here hunting down women, and they're whooping on Nicki because they don't want to come and read. Now go ahead and look this up. Look up Kenneth Petty. Ask ChatGPT to tell you about the case. And this is what comes up. He's not the only one.
These charges just continue to stack up. And I had no clue. My mom had no clue. We didn't know how this was happening until years later, finding out how that all went down.
So let's see here.
Okay, I'm back. Now, as you can see, behind me is the actual statement from the lady saying that she lied about Kenneth Petty, Nicki Minaj's husband, our she never did that. I mean, he never did that. He never did that. So this actually just goes to show you that a lot of women do this thing where they basically will manipulate the events of crimes because they don't want to be seen as HOEs, 304s. They don't want to be seen as that, and they are scared what people are going to think about them. So they lie on people, and then they go on about their lies. And then the person that's actually innocent has to deal with the fact that everybody thinks that they're something that they're not. And this happens all the time with Black men. And we have to stand for what is true. This is not about Cardi B at all. This is just about the fact that y'all swear that that lady is married to a serial rapist. But he's not.
Yeah, and that's crazy. Like even the first video I played, the girl's like, yeah, and one of his victims, like he's just out here going door to door, just raping people, women left and right. You know, it's crazy. You know, they make these same accusations about a lot of men, and then there's no evidence of it at all. And they're just lying. They're just making it up. They did it. I'll be honest. I watched the whole Puffy trial. I went into it thinking that the dude never made music. He's just been raping and attacking people for about 30 years nonstop. Every day, men, women, children, pets, all kind of shit. I'm an idiot. I have egg on my face. I listened to the trial, people trying to bury him. Nobody had a thing to gain by telling the truth, by not telling the truth and trying to get him free. Everyone turned on him, even the people he took care of. Nobody had his back. If he was gay, it would have came out. But there are still people after the trial talking about Diddy's gay. He had hundreds of male escorts. Never took one to the side to get topped off or nothing. Nothing. Everything was just the girls. Dude was just a spectator. The girls were paying him. But everyone's telling me he's gay and he's this and he's that. All the women around him, all the people around him, all the people in the trial, everybody had to testify. Never once did any of these women who hated his guts lie and say, you know what, and he's gay too. Nobody ever even threw that out there. So it just shows you that the public has this weird infatuation with demonizing men, calling them gay, calling them rapists. And it's like, okay, why can't any of these accusations ever hold water? Why do they all fall apart when you take a look into them? He was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm. Lotion on the dresser. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yeah.
Is that from your room? Another room. This shows the beds in that room.
They're showing him pictures of his own bedroom. What is this supposed to prove? They said that they didn't even go to his house. They went to her house. It's like they were literally, if you got in trouble back in those days and you didn't have money to defend yourself, you were done. You're going to be a felon. I have a cousin. He pleaded guilty to a felony for the remnants of a blunt in his car, and he doesn't even smoke weed because you know why? He wasn't smart enough. He didn't have representation, and he just did what they told him to do. They convinced him to just take the plea deal, and that way he gets to go home. But he didn't realize he's pleading guilty to a fucking felony. Yeah, you're going to get probation for 5 years, but you're a felon. Had he had just said, no deal, let's take it to trial, they would have came back to him with another deal later that day, and they would have said, okay, no felony, and how about this? You pay a $500 fine, no probation. But these kids, these people are inexperienced and they don't know. He didn't know, but he knew that he was facing 100 years to life if they get him for kidnapping, assault, attempted, actual rape. All they were just piling all the charges on him. He said, okay, as he's a kid, a fucking kid. And you guys want to use this against Nicki Minaj because she spoke out against people that groom kids? You guys are so offended that she said boys should be boys. These groomers that are trying to convince them that they're trans and that they're gay, leave the kids alone. Let the boys be boys. And then a lot of the gays and a lot of the blacks, they are just up in a roar. That's crazy to me. No, you're not going to be able to use that insult against Nicki Minaj because her husband was not a predator. He's a victim. He needs to be acknowledged as such. Now, don't get me wrong. He's still a hood dude. He got into it with some people. He broke another dude's jaw, defending Nicki Minaj. He's not no punk, but he's definitely not out here a predator, hurting women and hunting them down and just raping people. That's a lie. But just to throw that out there because you're mad because she said stop grooming kids is fucking insane. And absolutely, there should be charges for people that make false allegations, but they never will. Because if there's a man that you want to target, you can always send a woman to go hook up with him. And you can always use that woman's story about how that night went to control that man, because she can always be used to extort you, to accuse you, there's a lot of women that are living off of settlements where they get a check from 5 different dudes for $5,000 a month. And they pretend they are a big businesswoman, but they're really getting 25 grand from 5 different lawsuits that they had lawyers from men they slept with. And they woke up the next morning and said, what happened last night? I don't remember. You know how scary that is for a man that doesn't have cameras in his home and that can't prove that you consented to everything. Now you're pretending like you don't know where you're at. There's a whole industry about that. There's lawyers and law firms. And you know what they do? They'll take the girl's case. They don't call the police. They contact the man's lawyer. And they say, look, we're not going to go to the police, but we have this evidence. She went and got a kid the next morning, this, and this. The allegations alone to destroy him. He's going to lose his job. He won't be on TV anymore. He's not going to be able to play sports anymore. They go after certain people. And it's kind of just, they call it the cost of doing business, is understanding if you're going to be a straight man and you like women in this world, in this country, you're going to have to literally get used to being extorted. It's legal over here now, unfortunately. So it's an industry. But I'm glad that we could sit here and talk about this. I want to finish hearing what she had to say.
It's when you lock family in front of friends, in front of everybody, like
rewind it,
whatever. And they were I'm the person who pressed the charges. I would like to drop the charges. I made a huge mistake.
Wow.
This was like, I'm in court in front of his family, in front of friends, in front of everybody, like whatever. And they was like, take it to the DA, and nobody wanted to hear shit.
Because he probably didn't have a paid lawyer at that time. They didn't want you to go to court because you recanted your story. You told them it never happened. XYZ. You was young. You was pressured. Correct, right?
Yeah.
So that's why. Yeah, man. Talking. Yeah. So that's probably why they were so thirsty, because they knew the case would have fell through the roof. Because if you'd have said,
there's more. If you've heard it once, you've heard it 1,000 times. Anybody can make up these stories and accuse a man of something when they're mad or when there's a financial incentive. You don't know. And then the girl regrets it later, but if her family's offered anything, they're not going to let her take that back. She's going to have to stand on it all the way to the end and lie on this man and watch him go down. So no, we're not going to be able to use this against Nicki Minaj anymore because she's a conservative with values, because she supports Trump. You're not going to be able to say your husband's a predator. Your husband can't come within. Or her husband was a kid that was victimized. Her husband was a young man that was railroaded. Her husband was innocent, but he pled guilty, so he didn't go to prison forever like Brian Banks and like everybody, like a million other men. They pled guilty to a charge they were innocent of, because the alternative was going to trial and potentially losing to something you're not guilty of and doing 10 times more time than you would have if you just take the plea deal and say, I did it. It's crazy how this system works over here. It's not about guilt or not. It's about, can you get a lawyer to get you a plea deal that says that you didn't do it or you did? It's not even it's made to set you up to fail. It's not made for you to get out. It's made to put you on probation and keep you in prison, keep you a part of the system indefinitely, and to restrict you. You won't be able to own guns. You won't even be able to vote, anything. Do me a favor. Let me know what your thoughts on this. Like and subscribe. I just wanted to get on here and talk about Kenneth Perry because I was curious about his case. And then I looked it up and I said, oh, yeah, I got to talk about this. I'll be back on in a few minutes with another topic. I'll see you again shortly.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.